everybody. Today we're going to be reading chapter 20 and 21 of Out of My Mind. So I need you to go ahead and open up your Out of My Mind book. Let's see, where's 20 and 21? There's 19, 20. Perfect. All right, page 175. So open it up to page 175. Let's get started. Chapter 20. I was right about the weather today. I hope the little crocus buds have tiny wool blankets because the temperature dipped back down to the 30s, and our classroom was chilly when we rolled in this morning. The public address system blared the usual Monday morning announcements about bake sales and soccer practice. Most of the time, nobody in H5, not even Mrs. Shannon, pays much attention to them. The craziness of our morning usually takes over. Mrs. Shannon had managed to get us a Wii game system. I don't know why. Willie loves the baseball program. I've learned to keep out of his way while he pretends to hit the ball as he watches the screen. Sometimes his swings go wide. A hit! He cries out with triumph. Then he'll try to run the bases in the classroom. Even Freddie can't keep up with him. I usually sit in a corner with my headphones on, trying to tune it all out. But today I listened carefully to the bulletin. My heartbeat sped up, and I jerked my arms with excitement as I heard the principal say, "All students who wish to try out for the Whiz Kids quiz team, please report to Mr. Deming's room after school." I stayed nervous all day. I didn't tell Rose what I planned to do. I thought about it, then decided not to. Suppose she said it was a stupid idea. I didn't think I could take that. Then I spilled tomato soup all over the front of my blouse at lunchtime. Even though Catherine tried to clean up, you just can't get red stuff out of a white shirt. I feel like a slob. I wish I had thought of that this morning. I could have told Mom to pack a change of clothes for me. It's still hard to remember that I can say stuff like that now. I didn't go out for inclusion classes all day. I wanted to study until the last minute. But as soon as the last bell rings, I grabbed Catherine's arm. "Hurry," I typed, "to Mr. D's room." Even though I'm in the electric chair, we set it manually so she could push me. I'm too nervous to drive. When we arrive at Mr. Deming's room, a group of kids from my history class are already there, whispering together and going over note cards. They look up in surprise when Catherine wheels me in. "Hi, Melody," Rose says. "What are you doing here?" Her voice doesn't seem as friendly as usual. "Quiz team," I typed. "She can't be on the team," I hear Claire whisper to Jessica, wrinkling up her nose. "She's from the retard room." Molly thinks that's really funny. She screeches like a blue jay when she laughs. I decided to ignore them, even though I feel my anger rising. I have to stay focused. Several more students file into the room from both grades 5 and 6. I don't know the 6th graders very well. They have different recess times. I wonder if they're smarter. They've had more time to learn stuff. A few kids point at me and whisper. When Mr. Deming hurries in carrying a stack of papers sealed in plastic, he scans the room to see who's here. He frowns slightly when he sees me, but he sets the test papers on his desk and greets us all. "Welcome," he says. "I'm so glad that so many of you have chosen to try out for the competition this afternoon. It's going to be challenging as well as fun. Are there any questions before we get started?" Connor, of course, raises his hand. "Yes, Connor," Mr. Deming says with a good-natured sigh. "Oh, yes, Connor," Mr. Deming says with a good-natured sigh. Will we get pizza and stuff during practice like last year?" "Don't you think you need to make the team first?" his friend Rodney yells out. Rodney is right. Let's do one thing at a time. Mr. Deming lifts the stack of test papers from his desk and holds them like a treasure. I hold it in my hand, the official test questions from the National Whiz Kids headquarters in Washington, D.C. I will be reading the questions to you just as it's done in real competition, and then he stops and stares. Everyone looks around to see what has interrupted him. It's me. Mr. Deming taps the stack of papers for a moment, clears his throat, and addresses Catherine. "You know, I don't think it's appropriate for Melody to be here. This is not a recreational activity just for fun. The purpose of this meeting is to choose our official team." He isn't even speaking to me. He's looking right over my head at Catherine. as if I were invisible. Now I'm really mad. I turn up the volume on my machine. Very loud. I am here to take the test. Mr. Deming blinks. Melody, I don't want your feelings to get injured. The test is very hard. I am very smart. I just don't want you to be hurt, Melody. He sounds sincere, sort of. I'm tough, I typed. You go, girl, Rose suddenly says from the front of the room. A few other kids clap in their support. That makes me feel a little better. Just a little. Catherine speaks up. By law, she cannot be excluded. You know that, sir. Yes, but read the question to the student just as you had planned. They'll write the answers on the notebook paper. Melody will record her answers, then print them out for you. How do we know you won't be helping her? Claire asks. Because I won't be in the room, Catherine replies. Too bad, because you might need some help. Catherine grins at her, but Claire just looks away. I tell Catherine, go now. I almost push her away. Thank you. Your mom is coming to pick you up? Yes. Good luck, Melody. You're my champ no matter what. You got that. Got it. I wave as she leaves the room. Mr. Deming shrugs his shoulders and continues with the directions. There are 100 quiz questions. I will read each prompt one time and each answer only once. You have 30 seconds to record each response. Please write only the capital letter A, B, C, D, and sometimes E. Are there any questions? Claire's hand shoots up. Yes. How do we know Melody doesn't have her answers stored in her machine? Us normal people aren't allowed to use computers. Why are you so worried about Melody? Rose answers before Mr. D has a chance to. Are you scared she'll get a higher score than you? No way. Then be quiet so we can get started. Mr. D smiles at Rose. Students, get out 2 sheets of paper, one to write on, one to cover your answers. We believe in honesty, but an extra sheet of paper can't hurt. Everyone shuffles to find paper and pens. Then a feeling of quiet expectation falls over the room. Mr. Deming unseals the official test and opens the first page. Let us begin, he says, his voice suddenly sounding very official. Number 1. The capital of Colombia is A. Brussels, B. Santiago, C. Bogota, or D. Jakarta. He pauses while everyone scribbles their answers. I punch in the letter C. Good old Mrs. V and her capital quiz cards. Number 2, Mr. Deming continues. Gerontology is the study of A. the elderly, B. Geronts, C. germs, D. rocks and jewels. I punch in the letter A. So far, so good. I don't know a lot of these things, so I'm learning these things with Melody. The test continues for the next 30 minutes or so. He asks questions about atoms and clouds, about fish and mammals, about famous religions and dead presidents. Some of the answers I'm sure of. I guess on a couple. The math questions make me sweat. This is the hardest, most exciting thing I've ever done. The last question is killer. And number 100, Mr. D says, relief in his voice. The small intestine of an average adult, if stretched out vertically, would measure how long? A, 8 to 12 inches, B, 1 to 2 feet, C, 5 to 7 feet, or D, 20 to 23 feet. We learned this in Generation Genius. I punch in the letter D, hoping I've guessed right, and breathe a sigh of relief. It was over. Pencils down, please, Mr. Deming tells us. Make sure your name is on your paper, then cover it with the cover sheet and pass it up to me. As everyone gathers papers and scribbles their name hurriedly, I push the print button on my Meditalker. A slim sheet with my answers emerges from the side. Mr. Deming walks back to where I sit and rips it off. He doesn't look at me. We're done here, he tells the class. Your parents were told what time to pick you up, but if anyone has a problem with a ride, let me know. I won't leave the building until everyone has safely left school grounds. I'm the last one out. I know my mom will probably come in to get me, but I want to leave on my own power. I turn on my chair and wheel around to face the door. Melody, Mr. D calls. I spin back around. I hope you are not discouraged by all this. I was only trying to protect you from being hurt. I'm okay, I tell him. I'll be announcing the scores and the members of the team tomorrow. I just don't want you to be disappointed. I understand. Then I ask him, top 8 scores get picked? Yes, 4 team members and 4 alternates. I'm tired and I've started to drool a little. I'm sure he thinks I'm a dunce, a sloppy one at that. I feel the red stain on my blouse is screaming. Okay, good night. Good night, Melody. See you tomorrow. And, you might want to wipe your mouth. I rubbed the sleeve of my shirt across my lip, the tomato-stained shirt. I can imagine what he was thinking. I almost bump into my mom as she hurries in. How did you do, sweetie? She asked breathlessly. Okay, I guess. To Mr. D, she says, thank you for giving her the opportunity to participate. My pleasure, Mrs. Brooks. Melody is a delight, and I'm amazed she's been able to achieve as well as she has. Yeah, right. A delight with dripping lips and a dirty shirt. Let's go, Mom, I type. I need to go to the bathroom, and I want to go home. Chapter 21. Going to the bathroom at school just plain sucks. I have to be taken out of my chair, lifted onto the toilet, and held there so I don't fall. Then someone has to wipe me while I'm finished. It's not as bad when it's Mom, but it's awful when a classroom aide has to do that for me. She is required by law to wear plastic gloves, I guess in case I have some kind of infection or disease. It's completely embarrassing. I don't usually have to go first thing in the morning, but I'm so nervous on Tuesday, I asked to be taken twice. Then I go to all my inclusion classes. The students who tried out for the quiz team can't stop chatting about the test. I listen to every word. I couldn't believe how easy it was, Connor boasts. I bet I got a higher score than you did, Claire says, her voice cocky. I thought the geography questions were off the map, Rose adds. I've never heard of some of those countries. Jessica shakes her head. The math part wasn't much fun either. I can't believe we even care about a dumb test for a quiz team, Rodney comments. Because the competition is on television, man. Connor replies, big time TV coverage here in town, and if we make the finals, we go to DC, where it will be televised all over the country. If we win, we get to be on Good Morning America. My grandma in Philly can watch me, and my aunt in Frisco. I'll be famous. What do you mean, if we win, Connor? Claire asked him. Don't you mean when we stomp the competition? Yeah, for sure. I already bought a new suit for when I'm on TV. Rose rolls her eyes. I thought this was a team contest, Connor. She reminds him. Hey, the team would be nothing without me. He holds his hand up in the air for high fives. I listen quietly from the back of the room. When the bell rings to indicate it's time for Mr. Deming's class, my palms feel sweaty. Catherine pushes me into the room and whispers in my ear, relax, you rock. Mr. Deming gets the class quiet and takes attendance. Why do teachers go so slow when they want something from them? Finally, he removes a sheet of paper from his briefcase. I graded your quiz team test last night, and since many of you who tried out for the competition team are in this class, I'm going to share the results with you now. The teacher of the other classes who have students who tried out have been given the same list and are at this moment reading the results to them. So read the list, Connor shouts, getting up from his desk. If classroom behavior were a determining factor for making the team, Connor, you might be in trouble. Mr. Deming says, please quiet down for a moment. That shuts him up, and he sits down heavily. First of all, I'm very proud of all of you who took the test. It was quite challenging, and you did extremely well. Rose raises her hand. Yes, Rose? Can we set the questions and answers later so we know where we messed up? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we use this test as a learning tool to study for the real competition. But anyone is free to see the test and check their responses. Please read the names, Connor says, as politely as I've ever heard him. Mr. Deming smiles. Okay, will do. I shall read the alternates first. 2 fifth graders, 2 from 6th grade. Amanda Firestone, Molly North, Elena Rodriguez, Rodney Mossel. My heart falls to my shoes, which is not quite to the floor, but close. How could I have missed so many questions? Maybe my thumb slipped and I pushed the wrong letters. Catherine squeezes my hand. Molly and Rodney screech with joy. Amanda and Elena are 6th graders. Connor is noticeably quiet. And now, Mr. Deming continues the name of the 4 students who scored the highest and will represent our school at the local competition downtown. The alternates will accompany them and will be called upon if any of the team members are unable to participate in any way. Are you ready? Ready, Connor says softly. I notice he has his fingers crossed behind his back. I'm proud to report that all 4 are from our classroom. He pauses. To know all the finalists are from 5th grade blows me away. Way to go. We torched grade 6? Awesome, Rodney says. Now read the names before Connor wets his pants. Connor reaches over and smacks Rodney on the back of his head. Mr. Deming takes a deep breath. The top 4 scores and members of the quiz team will be Connor Bates. Connor interrupts him with a wild whooping cheer. Of course. And if I may continue, Mr. D says over his glasses, we are also pleased to welcome Claire Wilson and Rose Spencer. Claire's smile is smug. But that's only 3, Connor says, looking around in confusion. I can count, Connor, Mr. Deming replies dryly. So who's the last person on the team? Molly asks. Earthquake report. TV weather guy feels some strange activity coming from a local school. Could it be a girl's heartbeat pounding too hard? Mr. Deming clears his throat. I must apologize. I think we have all underestimated a member of our class. Earthquake report. This is a big one. He continues, in my 15 years of running this competition, I have never had a student make a perfect score on the practice test. It is designated to be challenging, to weed out the weaker candidates. In a word, it's hard. Tell me about it, Connor mumbles. When Melody Brooks took that little practice quiz with us last week, I thought it was a lucky accident that she did so well. But yesterday, Melody blew us all away. She got every single question right. He pauses, making sure everyone is taking this in, and then he says, all of them. Earthquake report. Walls are tumbling everywhere. So she's on the team? Rose asks, disbelief in her voice. She's on the team. But, we'll look weird, Claire counters. Everyone will stare at us. I'm not going to have any of that kind of talk. Do you understand? Mr. D says sternly. I'm very proud of Melody. I regret that I underestimated her, and I'm glad to have her on our team. Earthquake report. Call the paramedics. A girl in 5th grade is about to explode. Everybody in the class turns to look at me. Catherine gives me a hug. Rose flashes me a smile, and I try not to kick and drip and make my teammates sorry that I'll be on their team with them. Will the whiz kid folks be cool with Melody? Molly asks. Mr. Demings looks thoughtful. I'll contact the quiz team officials and let them know about our special circumstances, he says. But that's no concern of yours. Now listen up. Team members will meet every day after school for 2 hours for the next 2 weeks, right up until the first competition. Practice sessions are mandatory. Here's the paperwork for your parents to read and sign. I need it back tomorrow. Earthquake report. Expect big aftershocks. Nothing like this has ever been seen before. The more I think about it, the more excited I get. Television, pressure, people looking at me. I can feel myself getting tense and tight. My arms and legs started doing the tornado spastic dance. My head jerks. I try not to, but I screech just a little. Everyone turns at the sound. I can see Molly and Claire jerking their hands, kicking their legs, and making crazy noises. A few people giggle. Mr. Deming's face grows tight. I aim all my energy at my thumb and point to go. Catherine gets the message and hurries me out of there. I want to find a hole and hide in it. And that is the end of chapter 21.